Hello students, welcome back to Programming Reference Point. Today we are going to continue with the list manipulation chapter. The topics to be covered in this session: working with list functions and methods. Before I start my video, I request you please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. So let's start. In the working of the list, we will talk about appending elements to a list. Second, updating elements of a list, deleting elements of a list. Appending elements to a list. Appending means what? Always we can add a new element to the end of the list. Just to see it over here, here we have taken a list one of 3 elements 10, 12 and 14, and we want to add 16. So 16 will be added at the end, that means after 14. So for this we have to write list1 dot append within the bracket 16. After adding the new element, let's see the contents. It is 10, 12, 14 and 16. That means the 16 is added at the end of the list. Now let's see how we can update the elements of a list. List 1, we are having elements 10, 12, 14 and 16. The index are also mentioned over here of each and every element. Let's say we want to change the value of the 14. That means instead of 14 we want to write 24. So how we can do this thing? For this we have to write down the list of the name along with the index number where we want to do the changes, and then we have to mention the new value. After doing so, let's try to print the contents of the list 1. It is 10, 12, 24, 16. So now you can see instead of 14 we have introduced 24. So in this way we can update the elements of a list. Deleting elements from a list. So for this we have to use what? Del keyword. These are the 3 syntaxes I mentioned. Del keyword list index if we want to delete only one element. Del list start and stop. This is what the list slice if we want to delete elements within a range. And del list means if you want to remove the complete list object. So let's see this few example. List 1, here we have taken 101, 102, 103 and 104. In red their index numbers are mentioned. Del list 1 1. So in the first index, what is there? 102 is there. So once this line will be executed, the result will be 101, 103 and 104. Let's see, the output is 101, 103 and 104. 102 has been removed. Now let's see how we can delete from list slice. This is the list where we have kept numbers 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106 and 107. We want to delete, this is what the statement we have written, del list to 2 from second index to fifth index. So basically the elements will be deleted from 2, 3, 4. List 2, let's see, 101, 102, 106 and 107. Now you can see 103, 104 and 105. These are removed. We can delete the complete list. For this we have to only write del list 2. Once this line will be executed, all the elements of the list as well as the list will be removed from the memory. We can delete elements using pop method also. The advantage of using a pop method is what? It returns value. That means it returns the deleted element. Pop returns deleted element. It can remove only one element, not list slices. Let's see the syntax. List dot pop index. That means the element that we want to remove, we have to mention the index. So here we have taken a list 101, 102 and 103, 104. If we mention nothing, that means by default it will take the last index. So here I have mentioned nothing, so it will delete 104. Let's try. After popping the last element, if we try to print the list 1, the contents will be 101, 102 and 103. Now let's try to see using the pop function using the index. Okay. Now in the previous one we have already seen that in the contents of the list are 101, 102 and 103. Let me write down the index 0, 1, 2. Now if I want to remove the second index, then the contents will be 101, 102. This will be the content, and the element which is present in the second index will be removed. Now let's talk about list functions and methods. Index, append, extend, insert, pop, remove, clear, count, reverse, sort. So these are the functions we are going to discuss. Index. This function is used to find out index of particular element in case if you don't know what will be the index. This function returns the index of the first matched item from the list. This is what the syntax list.index, and here we will mention the item of which we want to fetch the index. Let's take an example. This is the list 13, 18, 11, 16, 18, 14. These are the elements. I want to find out what is the index of the 16. So if I write 16, you can see the index of the 16 is 3. So result will be what? 3. Append method we have already discussed. It is used to add elements at the end of the list and it returns no value. Okay, so let's see first. This is what the syntax to append the item. Here we have created a list of colors red, green, blue, and we want to add a new color, that is what the yellow, by using the append method. By doing so, the yellow is added at the end of the list. Next we have the extend method. Just like the append method, extend method is also used to add a new elements at the end of the list. Then what is the purpose, what is the difference between the extend and append? We will see it later on. First let us see the syntax and example of the extend function. Here when we are going to use the extend, make sure we are passing list and not the element. Let's say T1 and T2. T1 is having A, B, C as elements and T2 is having D, E. Now we want the contents of the T2 to be added at the end of the T1. So for this we have to write T1 dot extend T2. Now let's see the updated elements of the T1, A, B, C, D, E, which were the elements of T2. Now let's see what is the difference between the append and the extend. First of all, the append can be used when we want to add a single element at the end of the list, whereas the extend can be used to add all elements at the end of the list. Okay. After using the append method, what happens? The length of the list will increase by one element only. Whereas when we use the extend, the length of the list will increase by the length of the inserted list. Let's understand with an example. Here we have taken T1, the contents of the T1 is 135 and we have used the append function. That means we are going to add a list, that is 7 and 9. Now you can see it over here, 1, 3, 5 and 7 and 9 are added just like a nested list. So how many elements are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 elements are added. Whereas in case of the extend, if we do the same thing, 7 and 9 will not be added as a nested list, rather it will be added as elements. So here the length of the list will be 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Here it is 4 and here it is 5. Now let's say we can add single element. So T1 append 11. So what will happen? It will append the new element. But just a minute. But in case of the extend, if you try to add 11, it will generate error because the extend can add only list and not integer. Now let's talk about the insert method. We can add the elements at the end of the list using append or the extend method. But if we want to add any element in a desired location, so in that case we have to use the insert method. This function is used to add or insert an element somewhere in between or any position of the list. Let us see the syntax list.insert position and we have to mention the item. So let's say we have created a list over here. The contents of the list are 101, 103 and 104. We want to insert 102 at the first position. Okay, so after using the insert method, let's see 101, 102, 103 and 104. So you can see the 102 is added at the first index. Next, pop method. We have already seen the pop method. It is used to delete elements. If we don't mention the index, by default it will delete the elements from the end of the list, and it returns the value also. Apart from this, we have some other function also, that is what the remove method. In case of the pop method, if you want to delete an element, we have to mention the index, otherwise we will not be able to delete it. But in case if we don't know what will be the index of a particular element, so in that case we can use the remove method. What we need to do, only we have to pass the value or the element that we want to remove it from the list. So this function is used to remove the first occurrence of given item from the list. It is used when the index of an element is not known. It returns no value. This is what the syntax list.remove, and within the brackets we have to mention the value. This is what an example we have taken. So this is the list we have created with the values 101, 102, 103, 104 and 105. We want to remove 103. Here we have passed the value rather than the index. So after doing so, if we try to display the contents of the list T1, the contents are 101, 102, 104 and 105. Clear method, it is used to remove all items from the list and the list becomes empty. It returns no value. The syntax is list.clear. This is what the contents of the list 1. If I apply the clear method, it will remove all the elements and the list 1 will become empty. The count method. The count method is used to find out the occurrence of a particular item in a given list. Let's see the definition. This function returns frequency of the item that passed as an argument. List.count. Here we have passed the item. So let's see, here we have created a list with some duplicate data: 12, 16, 17, 5, 12, 22 and 17. L1.count 12. So 12 is occurring for how many times over here? 12 is occurring for 2 times. So result is what? It is 2. The reverse method. If we want to reverse the contents of the list, we use the reverse method. So the syntax is list.reverse, and if you look into the use, just to see, we have created a list over 101, 102, 103 and 104. After using the reverse function, the contents of the reverse get changed. That means it gets reversed. The last one is what? The sort method. This function sorts the items of the list by default in increasing or the ascending order. The syntax of the function is very simple. List.sort. Here we have created a list 6, 2, 3, 10, 1, 4. If you apply the sort method, the result will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 10. So this is what the sort method. Now if you want to if you want to sort the contents of the list, elements of the list in descending order, for this you have to write, the syntax will be list dot sort reverse is equals to true. If you apply this, instead of the increasing order, the list will be arranged in the decreasing order. That's all for this video. In the next video, we will talk about tuples. By that time, students, if you have any doubt, please write down in the comment box. Stay watching Programming Reference Point. Thank you, students. Thank you for your patience.